Whenever I take a regular portion, because there are no other options, I eat a half and then, I have to take the other half home. But, then that generates more waste in form of like styrofoam or whatever,
Yeah.
packaging you're getting. So, I mean, it's a loop. And I mean, there is a need for systemic change. But again, people want to get the value for their money. So I understand that portion sizes are big. Of course, there is a huge monetary value of all the waste, from plates that consumers took, but also there is some surplus because, meals are not necessarily made a la carte. So, there is also going to be a lot of surplus that in some cases it can be frozen and, reused, but in some cases it can't. Like you can't just take the entire cheeseburger and freeze it and serve it again, in a week. Kitchen preparation waste is usually going to be unavoidable, which includes, skin, bones, eggshells, peels, and things like that. Of course, you want to try everything. You start with salad and then finish with dessert. And sometimes you really want to taste that hamburger, but then you don't like it and then you just waste it. And let's not even mention the environmental cost. So if you prepare the same amount of food, if you use the small plate, you're going to generate more waste from the food surplus. But if you use that same demand and have a large plate, then you're having more food waste from the plates, so more plate waste. Conducting studies where subjects are human, it is behavior and you always find something that you don't expect. And definitely that study, showed us something that we didn't expect to find. But
Yeah.
very interesting finding, at this point, we have to be more cautious about the nudges and incentives that we are giving to people not to waste food. We need to consider that, it should go through the mechanism of reducing the amount of food you take on your plate.
Some of the waste comes from the preparation side, is coming from lack of management. So what happens is maybe they put too much of an order and the food is spoils. So what we can do is we can use machine learning to have predictive models or agent-based models like we developed here to help food industry, to help hospitals, to help universities who are making food in bulk to make orders that is aligned with the demand. That's where I can see that our technology can help.
So in that sense, this is just showing the need to, to adjust the demand depending on the plates you are going to use in a dining setting. So it's just showing the importance of, how the system changes, not only from the consumer side, but also, within as well.
We actually got a comment from a reviewer that said, I believe the authors haven't realized their finding.
We are researchers, we kind of did our part. Now it's on the people who are implementing this to kind of take over.
Hi, and welcome to Meirer Talks Trash. Who am I talking to today?
Hi, I'm Nina, and I'm a PhD student at Purdue University in the United States.
Hi, I'm Babak Ravandi. I'm a postdoctoral research associate at Northeastern University in physics department at the Center for Complex Network Research.
Great. So thank you very much, both of you, for spending the time with me and talking about trash, talking about waste. I asked both of you if you would like to join me here on that Meirer Talks Trash channel, because you've written a paper together. Can you very quickly tell us what about something about the title? What is it all about?
So, very briefly, this paper was about modeling food consumption behavior in all you can eat facilities, or better known as buffet settings facilities. And we modeled the consumption and looked at the plate waste and the waste that was left, that was kind of the food that was served but was never eaten. So, we call it surplus waste.
Okay, we will get into detail about the paper in a minute. But first, could you please tell us a little bit more about both of you. How did you guys meet? What are you talked a little bit about where you're working, but maybe could you give us a little bit an idea why are you interested in the topic? Yeah, why? How did it come that you've written that topic that paper together?
Okay, so I'll go first. So I'm from Serbia, and I got introduced to food waste in my undergrad studies. So when I came back to Purdue to do my master's, I started working on food waste as well because I was very passionate about that topic. In my master's, I was actually collecting the data at the dining hall, that is all you can eat facilities. So I was able to observe how people behave, how much food people eat, how much they waste. And then spontaneously, I got to know Babak, and we talked about my research. And then he saw an opportunity to model this thing. Um, yeah, Babak.
I am from Iran and I moved to States in 2012, and I joined Purdue University in 2014 uh, to do my PhD in computer and information technology at Purdue, Indiana. And I was very lucky to meet Professor Fatma Mili, which she is the chair of my PhD committee. And I remember I took her course during my tenure at Purdue. The course title was The Internet of Intelligent Things. And during this course, she started teaching the science of networks and also very stuff related to complex systems theory and what are complex systems. And these are basically systems that the sum of the behavior of their parts is smaller than the behavior of the whole system. For example, looking at water molecules per se themselves, they don't have any behavior such as a wave. But then when we put a lot of water molecules and we have a sea or ocean, we get to see waves emerging from the interactions of these molecules. And I got very obsessed with complex system theory and network science. I was just talking about it with everybody. And then it happened that I was talking with Nina, and then she told me that they actually go to dining halls and take pictures from plates, people plates, to see how much food they eat, they intake, and then how much they waste. And coming from the mindset of complex systems and the emergence um, phenomena, I was just thinking maybe we can simulate this. And fortunately, we were able to abstract this consumption of food by people in all-you-can-eat facilities, create an agent-based model where the agents are people who are coming to these facilities to serve food and eat food depending on their level of hunger and appetite, and basically leave the facility either feeling hungry, full, happy, or sad, depending on how much they had to wait, or did they get the food they were looking to get. And fortunately, we were able to conduct some simulations, and we were able to recreate data very similar to real world, to these field experiments that already exists. And then we looked at journals just as two students back in the day, to see if there are any venues to try to publish this work. And then we found the Journal of Resources Conservation and Recycling, that we found that they had a special issue related to, I believe it was related to food. I'm not sure what was the special issue name now, but then the good thing was it had a deadline, and nobody's
Yeah.
is more busy than graduate students. So we had a deadline, a research question.
You had no advisor, no professor. So this is very special, I think. How did that come, and how did you manage to get your paper published without some support of a senior scientist? Yeah.
We started this paper for fun, and
Mhm.
that's why we just wanted to see if we can do it as two students, and it turned out that we can. So, but that's basically it. We just didn't feel like bringing anybody. It was our own idea, and
So what did the reviewers say? What did they were they surprised, or was it the problem that you did not have a professor?
Well, no, it didn't cause us any problem, and that's how it should be.
Definitely, yeah.
That's definitely because that's why academia is there, to train lifetime learners. And if any PhD student out there, you are having some good ideas and you're confident, we completely encourage you to go ahead and try it, get the experience, and it will help you in your career as well. It certainly helped me a lot to find my way to Boston, Northeastern University. And I was fortunate enough to get an interview from Professor Laszlo Barabashi to join his lab. He's one of the most impactful scientists in 21st century. And I remember during my PhD, I was reading a lot of his papers related to controllability of complex networks. And one question he asked me was, how did this different type of projects, interdisciplinary projects, I have other projects related to grammaticalization. How does grammar emerge in time? Looking from 1,000 years ago up to now. And of course, this work, which was already published back in the day. And I just told him, well, I just go ahead and talk with others, and then ideas come, and we start writing manuscripts. And and he said,
Right.
exactly, and he said that's what we are looking for here as well.
Yeah, but as you said, I think this what you have achieved should or could encourage other PhD students. Just start, yeah, go for it, try it, and it's not so hard to put. Well, it's definitely hard to publish a scientific paper, but you can do it. Yeah, we've three all have shown it. I with the help of my professor, but you did it on your own. Congratulations, what you have done here. But let's now talk a little bit about your paper. I think all of the listeners and viewers are interested in what it is all about. And Babak, you have mentioned already two very important things. Let's start with the first one. You said, or even Nina, you also mentioned it. You focused on all you can eat catering facilities. Why?
So, okay, there are two reasons. The more important reason is that all you can eat facilities are very common in the United States, probably more than in Europe, but I mean, I'm not there right now, so I can't really say. All you can eat facilities are usually present in the dining halls. So each university has their own dining hall or dining halls, multiple, and they're usually, designed as all you can eat facilities. You also have lunch cafeterias in a lot of companies. And of course, you have regular restaurants who just, this is how they do business. The thing about these facilities is that you get, I mean, everybody who went to these facilities, they know that there is usually food that is pre-prepared and that is served. So there is abundance of food, and you just pay a fixed rate, or in dining halls, you just swipe your meal card.
How much is it on average? From to 5 to 10 US dollars, 10 to 20 US dollars. How much are we talking about?
So I would have to say depends, which is the favorite answer economists give. It will definitely depend from state to state because of the standard of living. But let's say probably minimum is maybe $10 and then it goes up. I think even here in where I live, there is a buffet that is maybe $20, $30 um, per ticket. So, it is in normal human behavior that you want to get value for your money. So if you are giving $10 for a meal, of course you want to try everything. You start with salad and then finish with dessert. And sometimes you really want to taste that hamburger, but then you don't like it and then you just waste it. So there is a different behavior that is happening in these settings. And of course, there is a huge monetary value of all the waste, from plates that consumers took, but also there is some surplus because, meals are not necessarily made a la carte. So, there is also going to be a lot of surplus that in some cases it can be frozen and, reused, but in some cases it can't. Like you can't just take the entire cheeseburger and freeze it and serve it again, in a week. So yes, there is a lot of waste generated from these facilities and it has a high monetary cost. And, let's not even mention the environmental cost. Um, but yeah, that was kind of the motivation for dining halls. And the second was, of course, that I already had experience. So I was already working on these dining halls. So that was kind of the advantage, of course, modeling something like this.
Yeah. And so you said that there is the plate waste and the food surplus.
Mhm.
In your paper, you've also shown that other researchers also said or analyzed that there is a third category, the preparation waste. And what was the reason that you later in the paper did not include that in the calculation in the model? Why did you choose to just simulate plate waste and food surplus?
I would say that food surplus and consumer plate waste is definitely avoidable type of waste, unless we are talking about, you eat a drumstick and there's a bone that's left. That's of course unavoidable. But kitchen preparation waste is usually going to be unavoidable, which includes, skin, bones, eggshells, peels, and things like that. And in this sense, in modeling consumer consumption or consumer behavior, it just wasn't in the scope of the study because it is unavoidable. We wanted to focus on the things that can be avoided and to kind of to try to provide solutions for it. But of course, there is our model was built in such a way that there is definitely space for unavoidable ways to be modeled. So we can always go back and try to model that as well.
How far away are we from that stage that all the avoidable waste gets avoided more and more, and we just have unavoidable waste?
I think that's a good but very difficult question. Um, you know, Kitchen waste is always going to be there, but food surplus and plate waste, it basically depends on human behavior, and human behavior, like human habits, are really difficult to change. And that's what all these studies that we cited in our paper actually show. People are coming up with more and more creative incentives and nudges to try to make people to waste less, but somehow we always find a behavior that wasn't expected at all. So I think definitely moving forward, there is a need to focus on potential ways to reduce this waste, but I don't know if zero is ever going to be reached. Plate waste and consumption waste is always going to be there, but we can only try to minimize it, to reduce it from what we are wasting right now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just to add to that, I think if we try to basically utilize machine learning, deep learning models, if we have the data relative to other fields, the food systems, we are seeing a lot of new data sets are emerging. Uh, I actually happen to continue my work in the area of food since I joined Northeastern University here in Boston. And well, our focus is on the food from molecular level. What chemicals are inside food? How can we have food as a medicine? all the way up to the food processing. What is the impact of processing on the nutritional balance of the food? And I can see that a lot of different players, like for example, the Eat Forum in Europe, they've been emerging and they're trying to basically both be impactful on preparation of new data sets and also on the consumption behavior and spreading the knowledge. So if we get good data on the preparation, some of the waste comes from the preparation side is coming from lack of management or good management. So what happens is maybe they put too much of an order and the food is spoils. And so what we can do is we can use machine learning to have predictive models or agent-based models like we developed here to help food industry, to help hospitals, to help universities who are making food in bulk to make orders that is aligned with the demand. That's where I can see that our technology can help.
Maybe also to predict, to make a kind of a forecast, to say, okay, I know that there are some programs, some software solutions that can help restaurants, for example, if they are I don't know, in a national park and there will be a weekend with nice weather, they help them to organize how much they should cook, to know, okay, tomorrow there will be maybe 200 visitors in your restaurant. Yesterday you just had 20, but tomorrow the weather will be better, tomorrow will be a bank holiday, whatsoever, to help them to predict what will be. What you said, so just the data will be more and more important. But Babak, now we want to know more about the agent-based model. Could you please try to explain to me as an almost beginner for coding, and maybe also to some of the listeners, to non-experts, what agent-based modeling is all about?
So when we want to model a phenomena, a traditional example, a classic example is the flocking behavior. We see flocking behavior of birds. We can see flocking behavior in a school of fish. And it's very interesting to know that these birds actually, they don't have any leader. There is no leader bird. And we can still see this flocking behavior emerges. And they only follow a very few set of rules. It's for the flock of birds, it's been, research has been shown that there are only 3 simple rules that each bird needs to follow to have this emergent phenomena of birds flocking together. And that's the main idea behind agent-based modeling.
Just thinking of a all-you-can-eat facility where you said they are very independent in their choice.
Mm-hmm.
So students, are they really independent if they're maybe a group of 5 friends? Yeah, if the first orders takes a hamburger, are the others really unbiased?
Well, that's peer effect.
Yes, exactly.
Could you take that into the model as well, or do you always say, okay, every time the possibility to choose an item is always the same? Or
I can definitely see this being modeled, because we had patrons coming into the facility on every X number of ticks.
sorry, Nina, a tick is a time frame.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Every time frame when patrons got into the facility, we could have made a certain correlation between their choices for their most preferred station. So yeah, this could have definitely been modeled. It's not currently in the model, but that's a very good suggestion, Michael.
Exactly. So it all gets down to how much you need to simplify your model, because there is no model that can reproduce real world completely. But what we can do with a good model is we get the average behavior, statistically speaking. And for that reason, so we try to have a model, so we will go over it soon, but that is not too much simplified and also not having too much details incorporated. To provide a showcase to the community, to the agricultural economists and etc., to see you can use agent-based models in order to um, understand human behavior. You don't not always need to go and conduct experiments, field experiments, expensive and timely field experiments to basically reduce plate size and then see what happens. And then on the other hand, like you said, there are so many social factors, human factors, demographics factors. Like, for example, do they offer fruits in a separate plate, or you need to serve a fruit yourself? So all these factors can impact your results extensively. But then with agent-based models, we can incorporate all of these. And that's something it's very tough to do using analytical methods if you want to do something similar with calculus. And then we end up solving very complicated differential equations, which not always is possible. But when we have a computational approach, such as agent-based modeling, with a good set of assumption and with showing that the model is reproducing data that is similar to the real world existing data right now. So it has that reproducibility. Then we can derive good conclusions from it.
And for your model, what let's try to get a little bit to the nitty-gritty now. What settings, what models, and I think you also said you talked about, or you wrote about, attributes and state variables.
Mm-hmm.
Could you try to explain a little bit what attributes you have chosen, what state variables you have chosen, and why?
Agent-based modeling consists of a set of agents, and each agent follows a set of rules. So in our simulations, we have two kinds of agents. One are the stations, and the other are the people, patrons, that are coming to basically take food from the stations and consume it. And what happened was, I remember we were so excited about, the possibility of doing something, writing a paper on our own and all that.
Changing the world, yeah.
Yes.
A better place.
So we started brainstorming, hey, Nina, if we go to a dining hall right now, how do we make decision? And then, it's like, depends how hungry you are. And then, okay, if there is an element about hunger, then there is an element about appetite as well. And we started thinking about all these, trying to observe ourselves, imagine ourselves. And we thought, okay, if appetite drives your eating behavior, it must be when you're not super hungry, because when you're super hungry, then hunger basically overrides appetite. And with that kind of mindset, we started just making these assumptions, and then we went to do some literature review. And so one option was, first of all, the preference. Everybody has a preference what kind of food they like. So we wanted to consider that. In order to consider that, we had to consider stations offer different types of food. And people have different preferences for the types of food. And then also, what is the line, how much you have to wait to get your food, to serve your food. And also then when you serve your food, then how do you decide to go for your second plate?
If you want to have a second plate, yeah.
Yes, exactly. Or even, if you go on your second or third plate, how do you decide to serve? Like, if your plate has 4 or 5 places in it, you can serve 5 items. How do you decide to whether serve 2 items because you had 2 plates before? You're not that hungry anymore. And then the concepts of hunger and appetite, we were so thinking, okay, what is the definition of hunger? What is the definition of appetite? And we were just thinking, okay, if you're very hungry, then that's your need to eat. And then, well, that's probably what drives to eat. But then if you're not so hungry, but then you have a very high appetite, then that is what actually driving you.
So you can just be, you can just have appetite when you are not hungry, or am I wrong?
Yeah, when you're craving something, like
Yeah.
I really want that food right now. So that's a strong appetite, but not so much hunger.
Yeah, and then of course you're also willing to wait longer, right?
Well, it depends.
Or then how did you take that into account, or how did you program or code your model in that direction?
The flow that we agreed on for the agents to follow was, well, first of all, we used this distribution called Bernoulli. It's basically you're flipping coin, but it's not an even coin. Okay, so we have these probabilities with uneven coins for each of the decisions that people make. So one decision is basically taking food, which is coming from basically you have a lot of stations. Which one is more assigned or aligned, sorry, with your preferences, what kind of food you like, and then which one has a smaller line. That way, with these factors, we just rank them. Each agent ranks the stations like that. And then after that, with the level of appetite and hunger, so we have an initial value for this. So when people are coming from a distribution, random distribution, we are basically initializing these values. And we have this formula that are very simple formula. Most of them are exponential functions. So these exponential functions that we designed as a function of appetite and hunger will give us the probabilities to flip the coin.
And that formulas, did you find them on your own, or was there already some research where you could take them from?
We made all these formulas on our own, just talking, thinking, yes, and and then we just use a software to visualize them, just to see how the numbers change, how the probabilities change.
Which software?
There is a website called Desmos, Desmos. It's a very simple application. You can put any formula in it, and then it plots it for you in XY plane. And then also it has this very cool features that lets you to have these values increment by time slowly, and then you can see the behavior of your function. And we basically found a very meaningful tuning for the initial values. And we did literature review as well. We found out that basically a lot of these ideas that we had about appetite, about hunger, the people have already published papers based on them. So that was very helpful in order to create a narrative of the paper, and also to justify our decisions. That's a very important part when you make agent-based models. You have to be able to justify your assumptions, justify your initial values, because it's a simulation. You're designing a world, and then you have to justify this is a good model. And through model calibration, through showing how much is aligned with real world. And basically every every item that a person eats, it's that person's hunger level and appetite level drops.
Of course, yeah.
When they drop, so the chances of taking the second plate and third plate, that flipping coin, that chance is also dropping, and that's how we get a distribution of number of plates taken, or a distribution of served food. It is a simplification of what is happening, and we tried to at least put these parameters, put a decent number of parameters as a minimum, but one can go ahead and add more parameters to this model. We are thinking to actually release the code on GitHub, or maybe we use NetLogo, which is an agent-based modeling software. It's a product of Northwestern University. It's fairly simple. It's a very descriptive language. It's very similar to human language. It just basically, the agents are called turtles. You can call the turtles to move around, to basically interact with each other. It's fairly simple language to learn and to create agent-based models. And we use that, and we are even thinking to contribute our model to NetLogo. So then everybody can build on the top of it if they want to make decisions, if they want to make some tools to see what is the optimal number of stations in a dining hall in order to keep everybody happy. By happy, I mean that when they leave, their hunger level is decreased. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
And also have the minimum amount of food surplus, food left in the stations unserved.
Yeah. So, but before we talk maybe about the objectives here, what you wanted to find out, you said your agent enters the restaurant, and then first there's the decision what to choose, and then, okay, I want today hamburger. Then I have to analyze how long do I have to wait? Do I want to wait? Yes or no? And you always, or your agent always has the question yes or no, and always flipping the coin. Do you want to go right or left? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And can you just give us a ballpark figure? How many rows of code did you have? How many loops did you have? Because for me, it's very hard to get an idea how complicated it is to program all these loops, yeah, and all these complicated formula the Bernoulli formulas that you have talked about.
Well, but who you ask to, if you ask Babak, it's very simple and everybody can do it.
What do you
But,
think? What do you think?
you need a good programmer anyway. It was if I would look at the code, it was a fairly complicated code to me, but
How many rows? Or well, I think, of course, this is not a parameter of if a code is complex or not. But how many rows did it have?
The lines of codes, maybe a few hundred, because I mean, NetLogo makes it way easier. We just need to tell the agents make these decisions, and then we have some variables to capture the state of the dining hall, the state of the stations, and then all the agents just they follow the same instructions. The instructions are when the agent comes to the dining hall, so they rank the stations based on the how busy is the station, and if it aligns with the find the food that they like, and they wait in the queue for that station, and then for each empty spot on their plate they decide to take food from the station or not. And these are all again flipping coin, and when either the plate is full or they made decision for each of the spots in their plates, they go eat, and then when they eat, they adjust their appetite and hunger based on each item that they eat. And then again, appetite and hunger that they have, there is another Bernoulli, another decision to make to go for a second plate or not.
Yeah.
but there is also a very important part because the paper is about food waste. So people are actually, I mean, agents are making the decision whether to eat or to waste each food item. So when they're done making decisions about each spot and each station, when they finally go to eat, they make again choice whether to eat or waste. And that's where our objective function is coming from. And then when they make a decision, out of these 5 items, I'm going to eat 3 and waste 2, then they're making the second round decision to go for another plate or to leave the dining hall.
And when you said an item, for example, if you want to have some kind of beef or whatever with potatoes, and you have take 3 potatoes, do you have then 3 items, or are the potatoes one item? Oh, and to potatoes together, one item.
I think this was very abstract in our model. We didn't necessarily model potatoes, carrots, and beef. We modeled the variety. We, I think, had 5 varieties. So you can take it any way you want. So it can be, dessert station, hamburger station, roasted vegetable station, pizza station, or salad station, for example. So people will have different preferences for those 5 different types of food. But anyhow, in any dining setting, that is going to be different. So that's why we on purpose left it very vague.
Yeah, and Nina, then to come to the result, you always you in the end you calculated the percentage of waste that got left wasted. Yeah, and this is the plates you originally took and the plates and the items you wasted, or how did you calculate that?
They take items based on the preferences, and then there is again a chance that they waste it or eat it. And that's how we can just keep track of the wasted items or eaten items. And then initially each station has a quota. Initially we know how much food is in each station. And basically because of the quota, we can know what is the surplus in the end.
Of course, the main focus of the paper was about food waste, but you also analyzed, I think, besides the percentage or the percentage of waste that was put on the plate, or the waste of what the food that was produced, how much landed in the waste. You also analyzed the 2 more scenarios. I think the quality of the service, are people going to the restaurant satisfied afterwards, also the waiting time. Can you explain a little bit how you calculated that? How did you calculate the feeling of the customer afterwards, their happiness factor?
The simplest option would be like, consider that you have a flow of customers coming, let's say 10 customers in a minute, but then you have only one station. So then everybody has to wait, and it's, a lot of people, when they wait, their appetite drops. That's what happens in our model. And then after a while, when appetite drops too much, they leave hungry. And
that is unsatisfied hunger. Yes,
that's exactly unsatisfied hunger. That's what we called it.
Yeah, they left without eating, so that's unsatisfied hunger.
Exactly.
Coming to the main results now. You had 2 scenarios: the moderate traffic scenario and high traffic scenario. But let's focus on the moderate traffic scenarios, as they are both more or less equal. You said that if you reduce the plate size, which was in your title, how does the reduction of the plate size influence the amount of food waste? If you reduce the plate size, the plate waste goes down by 30%, which is impressive, and which is, of course, what everyone, I think every reader expects. On the other hand, the food surplus goes up. Can you, and in total, the waste is even bigger than if you have compared to bigger plates. Can you explain how that could happen, or because this is, of course, what everyone is surprised to read. Yeah, of course, if you reduce the plate size, you have less waste. This is what I was expecting, but in total, you have more waste. What can you tell us here? How could that happen?
Babak, do you want to go, or?
No, you go ahead, please.
So basically, we modeled moderate and high traffic scenario. So within one of the scenarios, so moderate, we were switching small or large plate. But there were certain variables to model the moderate traffic scenario. So it would assume the same demand planning. So let's say equal amount of food is prepared for both small and large plate. So if you prepare the same amount of food, if you use the small plate, you're going to generate more waste from the food surplus. But if you use that same demand and have a large plate, then you're having more food waste from the plates, so more plate waste. So in that sense, this is just showing the need to adjust the demand depending on the plates you are going to use in a dining setting. So it's just showing the importance of how the system changes, not only from the consumer side but also within as well. So yeah, that would be the main outcome. Basically, if you're changing plates, then also needs to be adjustment in the demand as well.
Yeah, and could you I think you mentioned that you haven't done a field experiment, yeah? Could you explain why you haven't done that, to compare it, maybe to calibrate it?
To calibrate the model.
Yeah, to well, I don't know if it's the right term to say to calibrate it, but to have your agent-based model results on one hand, and maybe the field tests results of your university all-you-can-eat restaurant, and then see if they match, if they lead to the same results.
So we did find the confirmation of our results in the previous literature. The percentages that we have found were kind of close and within the range of the previous studies that have done field experiments. So in that sense, our results are in some sense aligned with what was found before.
Did you go to your all-you-can-eat restaurant, and did you give them some such suggestions to test it then and say, okay, let's we have found that out that yeah, you can reduce the plate size, but they will have a lot of surplus at the beginning. So let's see if that's would really happen in reality. And the more important question, how they can reduce the surplus, because the plate waste, I think you cannot influence so much, because this is belongs to your consumer. But you as a chef can influence how much surplus you have, yeah, if you adjust. So did you talk to any chefs, tell them your results? Because I think this is also part of scientists, that of course this is very, very interesting and very important what you find out. But I think it's also our job to talk to people and tell them our results, because I think there are a lot out there that are interested in what you've found out. Yeah.
Well, yes, I agree. We did not talk to anybody from the dining centers about our results. Dining centers have their own employees who do all this work to maximize the nutrition and diversified diet for students. And in that sense, it wasn't really in the scope of our work, but it remains for future work. We are researchers. We kind of did our part. Now it's on the people who are implementing this to kind of take over.
Do you think of any incentives that could also lower the plate waste, besides changing the plate diameter? Nina, I think you have written another scientific paper on that topic. Could you tell us a little bit, maybe some sentences about your other paper with the financial incentives?
Yes, so it was an experiment here at Purdue. We did it in the dining hall during my master's with my previous advisor. And we basically went into the dining hall. It was a randomized controlled trial, which means that, whatever you find in the treatment group can be, seen as causality of your intervention. So what we did, we offered the treatment group $2 per day to kind of be more conscious about what they eat and like what they take on their plate. We ask them that they will receive $2 if whatever they take on their plate, they also eat it, so they don't waste anything. And we actually found that this financial incentive was effective at reducing the plate waste. Unfortunately, we did not see any significant decrease in the amount of food that these students took on their plate. So, an interesting finding is that,
They
these
are
students really cleaned their plates, but, they didn't really change the amount that they were eating. So, kind of going back to, working. Conducting studies where subjects are human, it is behavior and you always find something that you don't expect. And definitely that study, showed us something that we didn't expect to find. But
yeah,
very interesting finding, at this point, we have to be more cautious about the nudges and incentives that we are giving to people not to waste food. We need to consider that, it should go through the mechanism of reducing the amount of food you take on your plate.
great. So maybe last question, Babak. Let's start with you. What influence or did the paper have on your kind of eating, on your kind of going into restaurants? How did it influence you?
Yes, sure. Just before answering that question, on the topic of food surplus, initially when we wrote this paper, we kind of didn't know that how important is food surplus. We actually got a comment from a reviewer that said, "I believe the authors haven't realized their finding." Yeah.
A huge compliment, yeah.
Yes, we are very grateful to the reviewers of the journal, and they provided outstanding feedback and through multiple revisions, and they helped us a lot to have the right narrative, to develop the narrative of the paper. Especially, I think they realized there is no professor on the paper, so they were more patient with us, maybe. But we realized in our lit review that there are a lot of studies that says decrease in plate size decreases food waste. And there are also other studies, fairly same amount of event studies, that says decrease in plate size or removal of the trays, it can even increase food waste or it can decrease the nutritional intake.
Okay. Why?
So
Because people then just take one dish or
it could be reason, for example, they make a tower of the food, like, at the top, or it can be like one of the studies was interesting to me most was, so, okay, they removed trade, but they were offering fruits in separate bowls. So then people have only two hands. And that is discouraging for students who are busy to go wait in the line, go back to station, multiple times to, get fruit. And that, of course, that might decreases the nutritional intake because fruits has very important nutrients. And here it comes, our work that is basically saying, okay, let's go see what is the demographics. Let's go see how is the whole uh, facility operating, and then consider all that in our simulation, in our model, and then we can go ahead and tell you what quota is good for each station for this flow of people coming to your facility in order to decrease this food surplus.
okay.
I can see that this can be very useful from that point of view, from managemental point of view. Another study would be interesting to continue is what is the impact of the variety of food. Right now, offering 3, 4, 5, and 6 variety of food, I guess. I have to double check, but then it's a finite number. So if we have a study on that, and if there's so many different kind of foods available, how does that impact the waste? Personally, getting back to your question, how did that impact my waste?
You as a person, yes, yeah.
I personally turn out to become very conscious about recycling. And of course, when I buy fruits and stuff, I'm very conscious right now that nothing goes bad in my fridge as much as possible. And of course, cooking more at home is very important. Maybe the pandemic gives us the chance to learn how to cook and get a balanced nutrition instead of processed food, which can cause a lot of metabolomic diseases. That's the focus of my research right now.
Okay.
And it was very impactful, both in terms of recycling and waste. And well, it was kind of tough, I have to say, to recycle back in Indiana. As a person who lived there, I would say there were not so many stations available to do recycling.
And what types of waste? So yeah, general waste, plastic, paper, and so on gets recycled, gets collected separately.
Do you mean food waste or
No,
just
no, no, not just
like?
in food waste, but what other waste streams
Mhm.
could could you collect separately, or is that just general waste and maybe general
No,
waste and food waste?
it's not like in Europe. I know what you're thinking,
Yeah.
Michael. Here it is just mixed recyclables. So
Mhm.
you have trash and then mixed recyclables.
Will it
We
dry?
don't really sort them here,
Okay.
Yeah.
but I know in Europe that's like a big thing, and I wish it was the same here as well.
I remember when there was a facility in Indiana that they had like a lot of different kinds, like you could even recycle oil, cooking oil, or aluminum. But they closed the facility. And but then I've been fortunate to move to Boston, Massachusetts. Here it's totally different. Anywhere you go, you have, I mean, at my home right now, I do have a specific garbage for a specific placeholders for recycling, but it's not separating, for example, glass from plastic. But
Okay.
this, if I go to grocery stores, most of them has different baskets to separate. It's a big deal here. Even in terms of electricity, I recently got a letter that, hey, there is this new company, you can change their producing electricity from renewable energy. And that was very surprising for me because usually wherever I lived, you had only one option to get electricity.
Okay.
um, so yeah, there is a lot of room there.
Okay. And Nina, uh, what learnings, or if there were any, what how did it change your life? And for one specific question, if you would have to buy new plates, would you now choose smaller or larger plates for your flat, for your home?
So, I mean, I come from Serbia, and honestly, in my household, food waste was really never a thing. We were very conscious about our consumption and, usage of all kinds of things. So, but I got introduced into this topic, in my undergrad and then further in my master's. I don't know. I'm very cautious about the amount of waste I generate, whether it's, food or, different products such as clothes. I'm very conscious to buy sustainable whenever I can, if it's really sustainable. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think, I don't know. I don't even know what to say. I lost the thought, Michael.
No, but so
Um,
how it influenced you? If you when you say, okay, you always were very conscious about food waste, about trying to avoid food waste, maybe it didn't influence you at all, But even
yeah, I think I just became so, it influenced me in that way to become aware of it, to recognize it as a problem. Because where I'm coming from, at least in my household, in my little bubble, that was never a problem. So I got introduced to it, and then I was shocked by the staggering numbers of waste that's generated. And I think it's in general, it's a problem. I mean, there is food waste in developing countries as well, but not at that level as in developed countries. Freedom of choice is a problem of developed countries, and that's why we are getting so much waste. One issue I would say, at least for me, I mean, I don't really eat a lot, but in the United States, portion sizes are really big. I would probably prefer to see a menu with small portion and large portion, so that you as a consumer can have a choice.
Yeah.
Because whenever I take a regular portion, because there are no other options, I eat a half, and then I have to take the other half home. But then that generates more waste in form of like styrofoam or whatever
Yeah.
packaging you're getting. So I mean, it's a loop, and I mean, there is a need for systemic change. But again, people want to get the value for their money. So I understand that portion sizes are big, but it's my problem that I can eat that much. So
Yeah. Okay, but I think this was a very, very good closing statement. So thank you very much, both of you. Was a very, very interesting talk. Thank you.
Sure.
thank you, Michael, for having us.